Well, 2 matches today, and unfortunately only one of them do we get the result we want. And yeah, it's going to suck for the next year because the most diluted fan base in England is only going to get more diluted after this. But we all know, as much as they want to deny it, they did have help this year. So congrats to the most undeserving champions that we've seen in a while. But until you could say you're champions of Europe or champions of the world, probably shouldn't talk too much. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Blues and Stripes. So obviously it's good to get the win. I probably won't focus on it too much because frankly, there's not much to talk about in this one. It wasn't a great performance. We were also missing a couple of key players, but we got the win. And that is what I wanted out of this match. Outside of the fact that it does at least keep us in contention for Europe, I still am not convinced we're going to get it based on the performance today. It at least keeps us within touching distance, and that's what I wanted to see, but also winning against Tottenham, it's tradition. It's what we should do. It keeps them within touching distance of relegation, which is also fantastic. So come on, West Ham. Come on, Everton. But yeah, looking at the match today, like I said, it wasn't a great performance. We did have a lot of good moments, mostly for the final 30 minutes of the first half. We created a lot of good chances. I think this was probably one of the best performances we've seen from Palmer in a while, despite the fact that he still doesn't get the goal. He created some really good chances. He was moving it very quickly. He looked a lot more casual in his play, which I think is what we want to see from him. I think in the second half, there was a moment he gets slipped the ball and Neto, I think, is inside. All he's got to do is just one touch, get it in behind, and Neto's in on goal and probably scores. But it's that moment that we've seen from him more recently where he takes a second, thinks about it, takes another touch, and then the whole move is just dead. And then we have to go backwards with it. And that's the type of Palmer that we've seen a lot of, but we didn't see that much in the first half. First half, we saw a lot more of the quick play, in and out, turning defenders, creating good opportunities. The shot that he had that Kinski makes a good save on is exactly the type of shot we've seen Palmer make before. It's just a little layoff and an in-footed curler. That's the type of shot we expect to see from him a lot more. So hopefully we can start to see that, especially getting into next season. Man of the match was undoubtedly Enzo Fernandez. Outside of the goal and the assist, I mean, he just had a really good game today. Very energetic. He always does seem to turn it on against certain teams, and Spurs is one of those teams where he just steps up and shows what he can do. Now, the whole phone call celebration, don't know exactly what that means, obviously. There's a chance that that is a, hey, Real Madrid, come get me. But at the very least, it was another good performance, and if he is going to go, I think we're going to get a good amount for him because he's showing what he's capable of right now. And then the final really good performance to talk about is Hato. I thought he had a great game in defense again. But with all the talk that Maresca's going to City, I've seen once again some Chelsea fans popping up, talking about how he's the one that got away, Blueco made a mistake with him, blah, 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 all this stuff. Basically, because people want to hate on Blueco, they use Maresca as a reason to do that. And Hato is a great example of why Maresca was failing this year. Even before he left, we were in hot shit, and not playing Hato hurt him in a lot of games. And now that Hato's come leaps and bounds and has shown what he's capable of, it just shows more and more Maresca made a mistake with him. He should have been playing more, and then maybe we wouldn't have dropped so many points if he had given him a chance to prove himself and given Cucurella a bit of a break at times. But outside of that, most everybody else was okay. There were a couple standouts that were not good, which I will talk about real quick. First of all, obviously Delap. He does absolutely nothing but get himself a yellow card, so that is the Delap standard, I suppose. The rest of the starting lineup was okay, although Cucurella did have a couple of really bad passes and obviously had the header that set up for the goal. So a couple of disappointing moments from him. But really the two other ones that had a bad performance today were Garnacho and Sarr, which for Garnacho, what are we expecting? So him coming on and almost instantly giving Tottenham chances by passing it right to their players, it's not out of the ordinary. But for Sarr, this is really disappointing. Because I even said in my collab with Kai from Behind the Dugouts, I wanted to keep Sarr for next year. I wanted to see what he's capable of, but he's not featured, which means he's not doing enough to get picked for the first team. And then he comes in for this cameo appearance and he plays terrible. And we're defending a 1-goal lead. So you would think, go busting it, go through every challenge hard, go track down the ball. And he's just sort of jogging for most of this. For him, probably the most disappointing performance. Because while Garnacho and Delap are worse, my standards for them are a lot lower, so I'm not expecting as much. I expect more from Sarr than this. This was not a good showing from him. So obviously I'm not saying this is the end of Sarr or anything, but for a young player that I was really excited to see what he could do coming back from loan, I don't think he's shown enough. And that's really frustrating considering, again, I thought he could be really useful for us next season. That's kind of all there is to talk about with this game. You know, it wasn't a great game overall from either side, really. It got really chippy. Honestly, I'm shocked. I don't think Gallagher got a yellow. I don't know how. I mean, he went into several challenges. The ball's not even near him, and he's just throwing himself into players. I don't know how that doesn't get a yellow card. So there were just moments when the game kind of got out of hand, unfortunately. So it also brought down the quality of the game overall. But like I said, it's a win. which is what I wanted to see. So let's go ahead and talk about something that's a bit more exciting, which is, of course, the news that we got Xabi Alonso coming in as manager next season. And of course, as a lot of people pointed out, he's coming in as manager, not head coach. And that is the first thing that I do want to talk about because that is exciting news. Now, granted, this could just be them saying, oh yeah, we're bringing him in as a manager, but they're not really going to change how the whole system works. But one thing that I will say, and this is something that I've had in my mind a little bit, and I even talked about it with Kai a little bit after we finished the collab. It's something that I was never going to say out loud with how things were going this season. But one thing that is kind of in defense of the board and the people making the decisions up top. This is the first season where we've seen a regression since they've come in. Obviously, the first season was bad, but since then, it's been a step up. It's been a step up. This is the first season where it was a step back. So this is the first season where they can actually look at it and go, okay, what we're doing isn't working. And obviously, we, the fans, have been saying it wasn't going to work. Some fans were saying it wasn't working, despite the fact that we were taking steps up every season. So this is the first time for the board to go, all right, well, we didn't win any trophies, and we actually stepped further back than we were in the table last season. So now this is the moment where if they don't make a change, then I'm perfectly okay with saying, yeah, this board needs to go, because they're clearly not willing to change despite the fact that what they're doing isn't working. But the fact that this is the first season where we did regress under what they're trying to do, and they see that, and they're willing to make a change, and it seems like willing to give Xabi Alonso a bit more control here than they gave the past managers, or head coaches, I guess. I think that's a good sign, and it's a sign, once again, I don't think the board just needs to leave. I can't say that I've never had that thought before, but to say that just changing the board will fix everything, first of all, it won't, because we could get an even worse owner coming in, but they came in and they kind of ripped up everything and changed it. And yes, some fans will say, well, that was a mistake, but if I had to guess, and don't quote me on this because I obviously have no idea what the thinking was, I think they were attempting to stay as far away from Abramovich and what came before because they knew there were probably going to be ramifications, because we know the FA didn't like Abramovich. We know they were trying to do as much as they can to hurt him. And obviously we are still dealing with some of the ramifications of some of the stuff that he did while he was in charge and his board did. So I wonder if that was part of the thinking from Blueco, is we want to distance ourselves from that so we don't deal with the ramifications of the stuff that they did before that could get us in trouble. So because of that, yes, everything started from scratch. We had to rebuild. We had a couple years where we got better, and now we've regressed. So now's the time to make a change, and again, I think they are. So just a little bit of a detour just to kind of give my thoughts about Blueco at the moment, because again, I know there are a lot of fans that still just want them out despite some of this. Again, I think there's a lot of conspiracy theories going around about what the board is responsible for, and also a lot of fans that are willing to overlook all the problems Maresca had just because they don't like the board, and I think that's kind of ridiculous. But getting into Xabi Alonso coming in, he was not a manager that was at the top of my list. I would say he was top 3, though. I know he was in the running, but I honestly did not think he was going to come to Chelsea. Outside of the fact that I really thought they weren't going to change this idea of manager versus head coach, and he was probably one of the least likely to come in that regard. I honestly thought he was just going to hold out for Liverpool. It seemed written in the stars. Arne Slot was having a horrible season. It just made sense, I think, in a lot of fans' minds that they get rid of Slot and they bring in Xabi Alonso. So the fact that they didn't get rid of Slot was kind of surprising. And then the fact that Alonso went ahead and said yes to us, also very surprising. But I think it's a good move because I think the people at this club, they have a lot to prove. Because again, we just took a step back from where we were last season. The board and the people in charge, they want to get back to where they were before. They want to get back to pushing up and trying to get back into the title race. Xabi Alonso, I think after what happened at Real Madrid, he's going to have a point to prove. And I think his point has kind of been proven with how things have gone at Real Madrid since he left. But at the same time, it still is a weird feeling going from Bayer Leverkusen, what he did there, to going to Real Madrid and not really succeeding, at least on the levels that they expect to. So I think this is a great appointment for us because he's going to be wanting to show what he's capable of. And so I hope the board backs him in the summer and brings in the players he wants to bring in. Now, as far as what we can expect when it comes to formation and all that, I know a lot of people have already been talking about. That's part of why it seems like we started going with more of a back 3. So that way Alonso could see what's available here that might fit into the system he played at Bayer Leverkusen. I kind of hope he's not going to stay so rigid to where he has to play in this one formation. Because honestly, I still look at this and I go, we have a lot of good players here, and I don't think they would fit into a back 3. I think James is a great example. He is a right back. As much as people want to say he's a center mid, he plays fine there, but he is not naturally a center mid. He is more naturally a right back. And so I think if you switch up the formation to where now he either has to play at right center back or right wing back or in the center mid, I don't think he's going to be as comfortable. So I'm kind of hoping we stick with the back four. So that way we can keep Reece James in his more natural position. On top of that, if we do need wing backs, we're kind of slim in that department. The only right wing back we have is Malagusto, and he's just not good enough, as I've talked about many a time. Neto, I guess, could technically do at least the work over there, but he's not the most defensive-minded. I guess you could argue Victor Moses wasn't really a wing back either, but he fit that position well. But I think he suited more so Antonio Conte style, so probably in the same way Neto would fit better if Conte were playing a back three at the right wing back. And then left wing back wise, I think Hato and Cucurella could potentially play that position pretty well. But I think we've seen with Cucurella in the past few games, he has been getting forward a little bit more, and what he's giving us in the final third isn't quite what we expect from a left wing back. When you think about what we had with like Chilwell, with Alonso, those guys were constantly getting in the goals, getting in the assists. Cucurella this season hasn't really done, he did it a bit last season, but he hasn't done it nearly as much this year. Especially once we've started playing him at left wing back in the past couple of matches, I don't think he's been quite as effective in the final third. So that would be something that would really hurt us, I think, is not having those options on the wings. So that's why personally, I don't really want to see a formation change under Alonso, unless they're just going to sell a lot of people and bring in a lot of options. I think it's best to stick with this 4-2-3-1 because I think we do have the players for that, and just fill in some of the gaps that we have, like we talked about with Kai, like at center back, at keeper, left wing. And that is one other thing that I do want to reference, because I've seen a couple rival fans that because Chelsea has been seen as such a clown show recently, they don't want to give credit to anybody at Chelsea. But the fact of the matter is, we still have a good, talented squad here. I think the part of the problem is because this squad has been so shaken up because Maresca, and then he leaves, and then you've got Rosignor. It's been a rough season for a lot of these players, and a lot of these players are still fairly young. And again, we don't have the experienced heads in the dressing room to keep them all together, which is, again, what I talked about when we faced Nottingham Forest, where they've had a lot of turmoil at that club, but they've got the experienced heads in the dressing room to keep them from completely falling apart, which is unfortunately not what we had here. So I think despite what some rival fans say, we still have a good core group here. We just have some gaps to fill. We need the experience in the back line. Again, left wing definitely needs a shakeup. But when you think about some of these players, you think about Colwill, James, Caicedo, Enzo, Palmer, João Pedro up top, Neto and Esteval. Despite what some people say about Neto, he's still a good player. He's still very effective. So all these rival fans saying that there needs to be a huge shakeup and we need to replace so many players, the squad needs an overhaul, that's not the case. We don't need a full overhaul. We just need to fill gaps. And with a good manager like Xabi Alonso coming in and hopefully being able to get some of these players back to their best, which unfortunately we've not seen for most of the season, I think it's really going to help push us back up into potentially challenging for the title next season, which I won't say is the expectation now. We'll see what happens over the summer before I kind of give my thoughts about that. But I think we have our best potential of pushing for a title challenge with a manager like Xabi Alonso coming in. But the final thing to talk about with Xabi Alonso is something that I've seen a couple people talk about, which I do agree with. We tend to see the best performances from managers in the Premier League when they come from the German league. I don't know exactly why that is. I don't know if it's just a similar style. I don't know if just the tactics in Germany work well in England. But you think about Klopp coming over here, you think about Tuchel. It is funny to me because you think about all the players that came from Germany that haven't worked out, like Werner, Sancho, now Gittins. You get these players coming over from the German league and they almost never work out. But the managers coming from Germany tend to. I have not done an actual deep dive to see how managers coming from Germany work on the whole of it. But that might be something I do for the future because it would be kind of interesting to see how many managers do well coming from the Bundesliga. I know technically he had that stint with Real Madrid in between what he did at Bayer Leverkusen and coming here, but I mean more so the top managers in Germany come over here and do pretty well. They were successful over there. They tend to be somewhat successful here, which makes me wonder, is Kompany going to return from Bayern and just absolutely tear up the league with some team? Who knows? But it's an appointment that definitely gets me excited. It's definitely gotten the fan base, I think, a little bit more excited. There are the fans that are holding out because they still don't like the board. They still want to believe the board is out to get them. They're out to destroy the club, and they're the worst managers in Premier League history, which is just a ridiculous statement when you think about some of the ownerships that have destroyed clubs in England. Yes, we had a very rough season. Yes, this was probably the second worst season under Blueco. I guess when you think about expectations because of where we were last summer going into this season, compared to where we were under the first season under Blueco, yes, technically this season is worse in that regard. Yes, Rosenior was bad, and you could probably make an argument about who was worse between Rosenior and Potter. But for me personally, this year there were still better moments. There's still a bit more hope by the end of it, where the end of the first season, I didn't see hope at all. Even when we signed Pochettino, I just was thinking, so what's he going to do? Because we didn't have the talent, at least we didn't seem to have the talent, because you looked at players like Caicedo, like Cucurella, they were not as good as they are now. So now we've got players that are quality, they just need the right manager to take them forward. And so this appointment gives me a lot more hope for next season. So because of that, like I said, I'm not going to say this was the worst season we've seen so far, because I remember how hopeless it was after season 1. But with all that being said, those are kind of my overall thoughts. I'll probably dig a little bit more into some of the details in a future video. Again, I do kind of want to do a deep dive into how managers who succeeded in Germany did here in the Premier League. But we only have one game left coming up this weekend, so fingers crossed we can at least get back into Europe. So with all that being said, cue the outro. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe for more Chelsea previews, reviews, and talks. Also, let me know what your thoughts are down below, whether you agree, disagree, or just want to call me stupid. Let me know, we can talk about it, discuss all that good stuff. Also, if you want to hear me talk about TV shows and movies that I like, check out my channel Mason the Brock Henderson, where I upload reviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. As well as if you want to watch me play through video games and try to make it entertaining for you, I have a Let's Play channel, Meso Hendo Plays, where I upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Also, if you do want to help me grow this channel, I do have a Patreon where all the funds and donations will go directly into improving this channel's quality. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to y'all later. Peace out, and up the Chels.